WICR.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If you're just joining us to the Bill and Bob Show, I'm here doing this one on my own for the Milk and Beer today, and I'm about to wrap the show up, and I will do that by talking some basketball with you guys. So the playoff race is heating up, and there are a lot of teams that people are predicting, or that the experts necessarily predicting to win the whole thing. Cleveland Cavaliers are one, Golden State Warriors, Atlanta Hawks. Although the Hawks have been struggling a little bit recently with 3 straight losses. But one of the more interesting things that we're having here is the MVP race. It's been a while, really, since the NBA's had a close, intense MVP race. Usually it would always go to LeBron James, or it'd be guaranteed to go to Kevin Durant. Well, that one year, you are the real MVP and all that. But this year, it's really a toss-up, There are going to be the people that are going to, vote for LeBron because of name power. And then there's also the other candidates, earlier in the year, it was, Stephen Curry. James Harden is a good candidate. We also have Anthony Davis. And then there's Russell Westbrook. Now, when we did our first show, me and Bill, we said that our MVP pick, or not our first show, but one of our first shows that we did, we said that our pick for MVP was Anthony Davis. He was dominating statistically, and he's still young. And a lot of, a couple of people were saying, I don't know about all that. That might be a little too far-fetched. Steph Curry's going to get it. He's going to take it. And, they had a good argument. Steph Curry has really, shined this year. He's really proven what he can do, although he struggles against teams like Cleveland and Atlanta. Well, not the second time, the Golden State Warriors played the Atlanta Hawks. But in general, when the Hawks and Warriors played, Steph Curry struggled. And against Cleveland, he also struggled. LeBron hasn't really been himself this season. He's been good, but it's LeBron James. You don't expect good, Westbrook, Westbrook had his little hot streak going when he had, I think, 5 straight triple doubles, and he's been, stuffing up the stat sheet. The only issue with that is most of those games that Russell Westbrook did this, the Thunder lost, and that's not really gonna fly when it comes to voting for MVP. If you're going out there getting all these points and getting triple doubles and your team's losing, then you know what? That's not really what people are looking for in a most valuable player, because if you're doing all this and you're obviously not valuable to the team. If you had actual see, people forget what MVP means. It means most valuable. Although now it's starting to turn into who's the best player. As a matter of fact, it's not even who's the best player. It's whoever plays the best on a winning team. Because if it was purely most valuable player, then in my opinion, it'd be Anthony Davis, like I said before. Because without Davis, that Pelicans team wouldn't be anywhere near as good as they are, in my personal opinion. And also this, Anthony Davis is an absolute monster. And just watch, in about 3, you can even give it 2 or 3 years, Anthony Davis will be the best player in the league. That might seem crazy now, but trust me when I tell you, this dude is doing everything in his power to, get the Pelicans into the, into championship contention. And obviously they're not there yet. But once he's not in his prime yet. He's stuffing up the stat sheet, double-double. He almost had a quadruple-double, ladies and gentlemen. He almost had a he was about 3 assists away from a quadruple-double. That is absolutely insane. So, that right there really shows you how good this guy is. He's a monster. Can't be defended. But I don't think he's going to get the MVP, however. It's just something about big men. People who vote for the MVP, they just don't like seeing big men win MVP awards. It doesn't happen often, But they'll give it to guys like Steve Nash, in 2004 and 5, or 5 and 6, But you know what? Steve Nash is a great player. Great for him winning those MVP awards, but, they just seem to gear more towards scorers rather than guys who could do it all. I think they're going to get the MVP to James Harden. James Harden is probably, earlier in the season, Steph Curry was probably the hardest man to defend. But James Harden is starting to, take a spot in the span of one season, which really proves to you how absolutely crazy this season has been in the NBA. We've had, this season has actually indeed been one. There's been one heck of a ride. We've had the Atlanta Hawks with their undefeated month of January. Teams are coming out of, the Atlanta Hawks, they came out of nowhere. Golden State Warriors, they finally reached that point where they are respectable in the West. The Grizzlies and Trailblazers are doing their thing. And then you have the San Antonio Spurs, who are the defending champions. They're struggling a little bit. Just last week, they lost the game to my Knicks, who are dreadful. And ever since then, they've been, on a roll. Won 3 straight games after that. But, oh man. So those are the highs of the NBA. Now we're going to talk about the lows. And the main low, in fact, the only one I'm going to talk about really is the New York Knicks. We're in New Rochelle, close to the New York area. I'm from New York. I live there. And I grew up a Knicks fan. Always have been. But man. There have been some bad Knicks teams, especially in the 2000s. I remember those teams. I know a lot of Knicks fans remember those teams. But I don't think I've ever seen a team. To be honest with you, with the exception of maybe the 2008 Detroit Lions, I don't think I've ever seen a professional sports team this bad. The 2014, 2015 New York Knicks might very well just be the worst professional sports team I've ever seen in my lifetime. In my entire lifetime of watching professional sports, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, I've never seen a team in sports this bad. This team, if you look at the roster of this team that's currently active, you're gonna think it kind of seems like all the good players are tired now. Okay, that might be the best analogy, but it just seems like these guys all came from the D League, and most of them did actually. Clay Anthony Early, Alexei Shved, although he was traded from the Rockets, Lance Thomas, Langston Galloway, although Galloway has been pretty good though, but there's no talent on his roster. And they're not the only team. The Lakers are another team just like that. There's one big star, Carmelo Anthony, Kobe Bryant, both injured, out for the year. And then it's a whole bunch of, I guess you'd say, scrubs. This Knicks team is absolutely horrible. There's a trend that happens every game with this team. They keep it close, although they're losing most of the time. They keep it close. Then in the third quarter, they still keep it close. And then by the end of the third quarter, they're down by like 8 or 9. Then it's up and down in the fourth. And then by the end of the fourth, they end up losing by 20 points. It's the same thing every game. And I've only watched a couple of games, and it was terrifying. It was putrid what I was seeing. And I honestly hope that this wasn't the best that these guys were playing, because it was terrible. I know a lot of people dig into this team, saying how bad they are, and I know it's not really anything new what I'm saying, but my goodness. Listen, I'm a fan of the New York Mets and New York Jets as well. And those teams aren't exactly the best either. They're not. But I've never seen the Jets this bad. I've never seen the Mets this bad. Okay, in my lifetime, obviously, I don't know about before, but I've never seen a professional team this bad. People are going to say, the Houston Astros, but no. Houston Astros actually had some young talent. This Knicks team, with the exception of maybe Langston Galloway, has no talent. Don't sit there and say Lou Amundsen is an example of talent, because he's not. He's been with a whole bunch. He's been like 8 teams. Okay, there's a reason he's been with like 8 teams, because obviously people don't really want him. That's just how it is. I know there's some certain players that get traded a lot because every team wants them or whatever, but Lou Amundsen is an example of why every teams don't want him, because he's not that. All he can really do is he's a scrapper. That's a term that people use for players who aren't talented but go out there and hustle. He's a scrapper. That's really all he is, and that's really all this Knicks team full of, scrappers and scrubs. And that's what this team is. All right, so that's your Knicks for you. And I think I want to thank everyone who's listened. Bill will be back next week. And to all the people who are listening to Bill and Bob, thank you for tuning in. And me and Bill will be back next week for more sports talk. And I would like to say farewell to everyone. My name is Robert Bob Baez, and I will all see you next week.